Believe it or not, it is possible to be an artist today without feeling constant suffering or existential dread. Who knew? Certainly not me. If you're a spicy brain creative or a sensitive, weird little angel, this one's for you. I'm Alexa Van. Welcome back to the Bad Creatives podcast, where I explore my life and my art and business through the lens of the creative autistic experience. Today, I'm continuing the conversation on masking/unmasking, but specifically around unmasking my creative process behind the scenes, how I continue every single day to show up for my work and my creations without wanting to, lay down in a busy street during traffic. the bad creative, the bad creative, yeah. I'm going to be real with you. It can be tough. But first, I'm going to mention a little bit about how I got to where I'm at with it. This all started for me by being really honest about how burnt out I was for so long. I didn't know why. Again, I'm late diagnosed. What happened was I hit a wall. I've hit a lot of walls. I'm going to be real with you. But one wall in particular, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. How many times have we daydreamed about moving to the middle of the woods and never talking to somebody else ever again? I love fairies and I like the idea of being a fairy and having a mystical, magical life like that. But I want to be a creative artist doing what I'm doing. It's hard to keep it going and feeling the pressure of trying to balance that with life. So I thought, well, I guess I'm just never gonna be happy. I had actually accepted that I wasn't gonna be happy and that I should just try really hard to pursue my dreams because then maybe someday I'd be happy. Autistic burnout of any kind. It's so hard to really get what's going on because if you believe that your burnt out state is the norm, then you don't even have any other point of reference as to, oh, I've gotten a little off track here. I need to pull back or refine. So it made the most sense to me just to keep piling on because in my brain, I was like, oh, if I just keep doing more and more and more, then maybe it will feel better. When in reality, I needed to do less and less and less to feel even remotely okay. And then when COVID happened and I pulled back from work and I couldn't work anymore, I would consider myself at this point in my life, I would definitely say that I was a workaholic. When I had a day off and it was really clear I needed a day off, if somebody called me up and asked me if I would cover them or do this thing, write a new song, start a new project, whatever, I would have just done it. I would have said yes. I wouldn't have taken the day to rest because it wouldn't have even occurred to me that one day of rest could be beneficial for me. When that was forced upon me, what I realized was, oh, I don't think that I'm supposed to feel this bad all the time. I thought that that was just how I was going to feel forever. But when I don't work so much, I'm like a completely different person. A lot happened during COVID. I think a lot of people found this out about themselves. And what I realized was that I didn't need to push myself so hard to do my art because no matter what, I'm so passionate about it that even without having a schedule or anything like that, I found ways to continue showing up for it and to evolve and to pursue that. But I promised myself that I wouldn't ever go back to working as much as I had been working because I could feel the significant shift in my energy, in my personality, in the quality of what I was writing and experiencing. I just was like, I never want to go back to being that burnt out all the time. And I didn't even know that that was like burnout. When I did return to work, I was really disappointed that the daily demands of life were instantly too much again. And I was feeling closer and closer to that really burnt out version of me that I had been hoping that I wouldn't ever go back to. But pretty much as soon as I did go back to work, it kind of did just flood back in, even though I wasn't working as often, not even close. I started back working 4 days and then I went down to 3 days and I stayed working only 3 days for a really long time. And I still today only work 3 days. Is it enough? I mean, no. I don't ever feel like I'm making enough to feel super great about money. I had to just accept when I go from working 3 days for somebody else. This is specifically a job that's like really taxing and is for somebody else, by the way. So that energetically, it wasn't really worth it for me on any level. So for me, I found my sweet spot was 3 days a week, which is honestly still too much. That was step one, deciding I had to work less. And this is without even knowing anything about autism at this point. The next thing for me was learning to advocate for my art, whatever I was working on currently, as if it was a job I was being paid for. I don't know what it is about money that makes something legitimate, but as a visionary, we often have to begin without making money from something. You know, you have to believe in it first. And in order to believe in something, you're gonna have to carve out time for it. You're gonna have to say no to moving it sometimes. If you always put first everything else and then you just squeeze your work into like one little tiny piece of time, you're not going to get a lot done. I'm not saying you'll never get anything done. I believe that that's avoidance. I believe that there were times in my life when I was really willing to date a guy and kind of put his schedule before my own because I was really afraid to really go for it with my work. So it was just a really easy excuse. Like, oh, you want to hang out? Yeah, sure. I don't have to do that thing that I've been wanting to do for a really long time that I'm afraid about. You can always be jotting ideas down anywhere you go, but it does take sitting down and getting somewhat organized about writing the song out or the poem out or the book out or whatever. I always had every Tuesday was a writing day with another person. And we were bandmates at the time. And so knowing that I had to have something to bring to that made it really easy for me. So when you have another person with you, that can help. But what happens when you don't have another person? So I started to write by myself at home, and I was really leaning into this new part of myself that I didn't have a writing partner anymore. So I didn't really have anybody else's schedule to be a part of. I was giving myself a lot of alone time where I just was able to ponder, to kind of daydream, to listen to music, to do whatever I needed to do, but to be alone enough in my own energy to let some of my thoughts organize into ideas. That was how I was able to write an entire book. And it wasn't really hard for me to sit down and do that. I'm not going to get too into why because I've talked about that in a previous video called Autistic Intuition if you want to know a little bit more about that. Every time I've started a new project, it takes a lot of me being alone. Not a lot of people know what to do with their alone time, but I would argue autistic people definitely do. We are not what I would consider an easygoing bunch. I don't want to speak for the whole world here, but when we're passionate about something, we hyper focus on it and we really go for it. Knowing when to stop and how to manage that time and when it is good for me to go be around other people, to get other people's energy in, to have a community, things like that. That's when I started to realize that my flow is not always easy to track. It's kind of something that I have to get quiet and listen to tell when I'm getting like really stuck or when something's starting to feel really bad and I get really irritated. That's when it's usually time for me to take a step back and to go do something fun. So this leads me to my next point. I had to start saying no a lot. I started saying no to doing things that other people think is fun, but that I don't think is fun. And I don't try to force myself to think it's fun. Like one day I'm going to maybe understand why everybody likes it and I don't. I say no to people who want to hang out and do things if it's the only day that I can work on my creative stuff, or if I have a big launch coming up or something that takes more emotional capacity. I say no all the time. I don't ever cover people's shifts. Only swap if it makes sense to me. I'm like a no person. And it is a sacred no. And it is like one of the kindest things I do for myself. Because look, I'm not the friend that's going to pick you up from the airport. I'm just not. I don't even pick myself up from the airport. I didn't even travel for years because I was so freaked out about traveling. I've gotten over that now. But I'm just saying, like, I will be your friend and I will be there for you in the ways that it feels natural to me. I'm so down to hear about your life and everything that's going on with you and be real with you and like be a safe space and be understanding and non-judgmental, but I am not going to pick you up from the airport. It's just not going to happen. My dad doesn't even pick me up from the airport when I go visit him, which is totally rude, and he should be better about it, but I'm not going to be better about it. Another thing that I do to unmask today is being really honest with myself. So when I realized that I didn't actually have chronic depression, that I was just extremely burnt out, and I finally found that I was autistic, and I started to accept that into my life, I've been actively trying to take things off my plate, and I have seen my energy change. And because of that, I have seen a more organic and sustainable version of myself show up to my work, and it feels more enjoyable, and now I'm liking it more. When I started getting really honest with myself about my energy flow, this is when, and this is going to sound so pathetic, but I started giving myself one day a week where I didn't do anything, where I had like a low demand day. Just knowing I have that one day a week totally changed my life. I had no expectations. I didn't have to do a social thing. And it's usually the day after I have my part-time job. My part-time job is really, it's a very overstimulating environment that requires a lot of masking. And so it made the most sense for me to have my first day off from that be like a low demand day so I could kind of recover. I'm still burning out. And so I have actually added a second low demand day, which I'm going to be honest, that was really terrifying for me. And if you're just thinking logically, well, a lot of people have 2 days off a week. Why shouldn't I have 2 days off a week? It's because of that deconditioning of people like Gary Vee who tell you you could do anything, but you just have to work nonstop. I don't work that way. I just don't. I need rest. And then when I do work on something, I am more potent. It goes better. That also means that I have to say no to things that, not just things that I don't want to do, but things I want to do. At this phase of my life, I decided to stop playing shows. I did play a show like last week. It was a surprise show, but I'll get into later why that show felt okay to play. I just had to be realistic about the amount of energy I had to give because I've always been like, yes, say yes to everything, do it all. But then I just felt like I was constantly dropping the ball and I couldn't keep up with all of that stuff. Autistic people do really well when we're able to have a fixed monotropic focus on something. But I've got that ADHD part of me as well that kind of wants to do everything all at once. And if I don't pause before I say yes, I might accidentally take on more than I can chew. So just reminding myself, it's not a no forever. It's just a no for right now. So yeah, I played a show on Halloween. It was a surprise show. It was just with my friends. It was just for fun. We barely practiced at all, so it felt really low key, and I didn't have to sell a bunch of tickets or promote it or anything. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. It's no big deal. I just kind of realized playing shows for me is like such an extreme amount of energy that I am really in my element when I'm making videos, when I'm making content, when I'm in a controlled environment, because that's when I get to have a monotropic focus. I get to zero in on what I'm doing. I get to just lock in. I can record my vocals in a studio like so well. It's really where I shine. Making my audiobook, loved that. Making podcasts, love that. Editing content, love that, because it's just me zeroed in on one thing at a time. To me, playing a show is like, which is ironic because my initial mask was all about being a performer. And now I would rather be alone in my room writing a book, and I really like being on the internet. People hate the internet. I really like the internet. I feel very like weird and awkward in person unless you're like my best friend ever. I do feel like I can be more real when I'm making a video. Sometimes I have zero nerves about it at all. I had to accept the fact that I couldn't do everything myself, which is a huge bummer. because I hate relying on people because people freak me out. But this piece of delegating responsibility and hiring help completely changed my relationship to other people. I also learned, I don't have to worry about like owing them anything. I just pay them. The boundaries are really clear. I don't owe them some weird secret favor. It's just this is the rate. Can you do this? And when I started to do that, I wished I had done it sooner, because what I realized is I ended up saving a lot of money by hiring help, because they did a way better job than I did, because I was so burnt out that I was making these little mistakes that somebody who didn't have that amount of burnout just wouldn't make. I didn't want to give up the reins on certain things like that. I didn't think other people would get it. And you know what? They do get it. It's not that I can't do this. It's just that the amount of energy it takes for me to try to do this part that's never going to come naturally to me, and I have no interest in being really great at, it would make a lot more sense for me to just hire somebody to do it so that I can lean into and play into my strengths. When you've been burned out, like how I was for years and years and years, you get really lost and you can kind of lose yourself in the process. Capitalism would really like you to be burnt out, because the more burnt out you are, the less creative dexterity you have. The less creative dexterity you have, the less likely you are to go, hey, you know what? I don't want to do it your way. I think I'm going to do it this other better way. That doesn't involve me giving you all my money, time, and energy. They don't want that. Really, choosing alignment is incredibly rebellious. I've learned to prioritize. I'm currently making a monthly map of my energy, not just based on my cycle as a woman, but based on, let's say I have a big launch. Like next week, I'm recording the first episode of a new segment of, it'll be the Bad Creatives like show with more visual elements. I'm going to be traveling and going to artists and things like that. I'm so excited about it, but that's a really big launch. It's new for me. And so I'm going to have like consciously an easier week this week and an easier week the week after. I'm going to make it so that I'm able to have space, to have emotions, and to move through these big sensations so that I can support myself throughout this process in a way that's actually sustainable. So right now I'm prioritizing working with my coaching clients, making this podcast and the show that I just mentioned. They're not like totally streamlined yet. And so like most of my energy is going into that. It doesn't mean I don't ever feel bad about dropping the ball on anything. My audiobook is something that I feel like I've been totally dropping the ball on. I mean, I released it, it's out, but I've been doing very minimal advertising for it. I'm gonna get to it. And there's this voice in my head that's like, you have to do it right. But no matter how many times I did something the way that I thought was perfectly right, it was proven to me that it doesn't always like guarantee success anyway. So I'm gonna do it in the way that feels right to me, which means I'm gonna do it messy and I'm gonna get to it when I get to it. It's all gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. If you want to go deeper with me, I am now accepting a limited amount of one-on-one coaching clients. We work through the unmasking process, nervous system regulation for spicy brain people, and how to share your work without burning out, and so much more. The link to my website is in the show notes, or you can just go to thebadcreatives.com for more information on that. You deserve for your life to feel like your greatest work of art. Love you. The bad creatives.